There's this joke during COVID, right? So the Sephardic guy, Ephraim, had Shabbat dinner at his friend's Moshe, who's Ashkenazi. Then his wife, I don't know exactly why, but his wife didn't go. So he's talking to her the following day, and he says, honey, I'm really worried, because yesterday I had dinner at Moshe's, and I think I got COVID. And she says, why do you think I got COVID? Because yesterday I didn't taste anything. Right? So for those who know the differences between Sephardic food and Ashkenazic food might get the joke. Who here likes Ashkenazic food? No one. Well, Mel came to save the troops. Yeah, because what is Ashkenazi food? No, Sephardic food is spicy. Ashkenazi food is basically potato latkes and potato gugo and potato knishes and potato varenikas, right? So basically, what we eat is potato in all its forms. But, jokes apart, our ancestors in Europe were very poor, and potatoes was what they had. So they had to make do with what they had, right? And to some extent, this week's Parsha is the same thing. The subject is donations, and we try to twist it and twist it and twist it, but at the end, we talk about donations, right? So it's the potatoes of this week's Parsha. There's several groups. I know that here in South Africa, Facebook is still stronger than Instagram. Is that right? Who knows about social media here? No one is on social media in South Africa? Wow. So I'm still from the Facebook generation. I'm trying to get used to Instagram, but I find Facebook, 10 times better, even though they're all annoying. They're all a waste of our time. But given that they're all bad, Facebook is still, in my opinion, better than Instagram. There are several groups on Facebook for Jewish educators. And most of the groups don't work at all. Why? Because the logic of the group is, look, there's this amazing lesson plan that I wrote in here. If you guys want to use my amazing lesson plan, here it is at your disposal. And then it never works. Now, there's one group that is really, really good, and it's called, how is it called now? JED Lab, Jewish Education Lab. And why it works? Because it works in the opposite logic. I go there and I say, look, I have to teach a session for parents on Purim. Has any one of you already done something similar? And could you help? And then people start helping on other people's problems, like the real problems. Not I've done this amazing thing. It was there's someone with an issue, and I have something that might help that person that has the real issue. And the resources that are offered on JED Lab are like amazing. The conversation, sometimes it's not, I need the lesson plan. Sometimes it's, I'm dealing with this issue where I had this idea, but I don't know how to develop the idea. Can someone help me in developing the idea? And it's real partnership between Jewish educators all over the world. And one of the few reasons for me to stay on Facebook, even though I said that I like Facebook better than Instagram, because in Brazil no one is using Facebook anymore. So you go there and no one is posting, no one reads what you post. So, but this group is one of the reasons. So I was reading about this week's Parsha, and I was reading commentaries, and I got to this commentary by Rabbi Mackenzie Zev Reynolds. He published it on the Social Justice Torah Commentary. And he's saying, look, one way of looking at it's interesting because when I wrote the sermon for last night, I hadn't read this. And remember that I say, look, there's tzedakah and there's charity, and then in the middle of the sermon I said, oh, there's another term, philanthropy. So he says, yeah, you have tzedakah and you have charity and you have philanthropy. But all of these strategies, they come from the perspective of the donor. Right? The donor says, well, it could be, I'm cleaning my closets and then I found all these clothes that I don't use anymore, that I don't want anymore, and they're in really good condition. I want to donate them. Or I have this money and I want to develop a project. So I will find an organization that will be willing to develop this idea that I have. It's always from the perspective of the donor. But he says a different perspective is to trust the people who need the money. So instead of saying, I have this idea, what about going and asking people, what do you need? Right? And in our personal lives, I talk about this with my kids all the time. I say there's a difference between being useful or being helpful and wanting to feel useful. Right? Being helpful is doing things that people need you to do. When you just want to be useful, you go to someone else's house and you think, well, let's say someone just had a baby, so they need help. You go there and you think you're organizing, but actually you're taking the things that they know where they are and you're placing them in places where they don't know. You leave thinking, oh, I did this amazing thing, but for them, you only make their lives more difficult, right? And if you had asked, what do you need? And maybe someone would say, I need you to cook a meal for me. No, don't try to clean my house because you don't know where I store my things. Ask me what I need. So in this week's Parsha, it starts with God saying, this is what we need. We need to build the Mishkan. And this is what we need. We need all this kind of threads. And we need all these kinds of metals. And this, we're really poor people. Right? So one of the commentaries that I read said, oh, we grow up with these images of the Mishkan, like really fancy. But these were really poor people who had just left servitude, 400 years of servitude. They did not have all this fancy, raw materials to build the Mishkan. The Mishkan was built on threads of different colors. But it was what people needed. People donated, and they donated in huge amounts, but they donated for what was needed. So there's this text. So I'll just read one paragraph, and then we'll get to the Torah reading. So in his commentary, Rabbi Mackenzie wrote, Poor Magazine, a Bay Area grassroots, poor people-led organization, responds to philanthropic models of giving by reminding us that people who have struggled to survive, feed and clothe multiple family members and themselves, in fact, hold deep scholarship about the use and distribution of resources. When we assess the needs of our community, we need to focus first around the needs of our people. Then, from there, we're motivated to give freely and generously of what we have incited by our own hearts to bring about change in this world. The Poor Magazine organizers continue, we believe that giving and donating is not a privilege, an option, or a nice idea for the donor. Rather, it is a duty of people with class and or race privilege to give their time, their surplus income, their equity, and or their support towards change for people struggling with poverty in the U.S. and across the globe. Our hearts are incited only out of need, but our hearts are incited not only out of need, but out of a sense of communal obligation. A lack of resources should not indebted a person to an individual or community. Resources should never come with strings or obligations. Sharing resources eases some of the burdens that poor and working class people carry by constructing safety nets through community care, mutual aid, and building strong and connected relationships. So, again, this is the potato of the week. But let's be smart and generous in our giving. Let's not use our giving to inflate our egos. Very soon we'll get to Passover, and we'll talk about inflated egos. Let's not use our resources and our donations to inflate our egos, but to really spread the wealth that we've accumulated in the way that we can. Our wealth, our talent, our work, our time. Donating doesn't need to be only about money. It's about giving part of ourselves, right?